She was just stepping outside with the garbage when suddenly a cold metal barrel stopped her in her tracks. My son froze. The dark muzzle of a pistol was pointed right at his chest. The man holding it? The president of our neighborhood committee, Mr. Henry Carver, a former police officer who had retired but now ran the community like a strict sheriff. What he never expected was that my son wasn't just any kid wandering around. He was undercover for a secret government agency, working on a delicate mission. And Henry Carver had just become a person of serious interest on a federal watch list. Let me explain. We moved to the quiet streets of Willow Grove 3 years ago. On the surface, it looked perfect. Clean sidewalks, freshly painted mailboxes, neighbors waving American flags on their porches. But under this calm, something darker was brewing, fueled by a man who treated neighborhood rules as if they were laws of the land. Henry Carver, known simply as the Chief, even though he retired years back, controlled the homeowners association like a small-time police force. Every lawn had to be cut to exact measurements. Every mailbox had to meet the rules, and trash bins were not allowed to sit by the curb before sunrise on pickup days. People were scared to cross him. He'd show up unannounced if you changed your front door color without approval. He patrolled the streets in his electric cart, outfitted with flashing lights like a solo cop car. And worst of all, he always carried a gun. Now, I know what you're wondering. How could this happen? But no one dared to challenge a man who once chased a group of kids 3 blocks just for riding their bikes too fast. We kept quiet, smiled when we had to, and followed the rules. Except for my son, Jake. Jake was different, sharp, quiet, and focused in a way most 16-year-olds aren't. What no one knew, not even our closest friends, was that Jake had been recruited into a top-secret youth intelligence program. Not some regular school internship, but the real deal, training in surveillance, disguise, and behavior analysis. His latest mission was to watch over local officials who might be abusing their power, especially in quiet neighborhoods like ours. That's where Henry Carver came in. Federal agents had started receiving tips about a retired cop involved with private security groups and unauthorized spying. Willow Grove was suddenly a hotspot on their map, and Jake was the perfect candidate to blend in unnoticed. At first, I only knew the basics. Jake told me just enough to ease my worries without blowing his cover. I trusted him. Then came the day with the trash can. It was a calm Saturday morning. Jake had been observing Carver's routines for weeks. He'd noticed Henry always hung around near our house longer than usual, paying too much attention. Jake suspected there might be hidden cameras or listening devices installed around the neighborhood, maybe even at our home. That morning, Jake went out to put the trash bin by the street as usual. But this time, Henry Carver sped up in his cart, slammed the brakes, jumped out, and pulled out his gun. "What do you think you're doing?" Henry barked. Jake stayed cool, almost too calm for someone facing a loaded weapon. "Just taking out the trash," he said quietly. "Don't lie. You're spying on me." At that moment, I rushed outside, heart racing. I stopped dead when I saw the gun. "Henry, what are you doing?" I shouted. He didn't flinch. "She's been watching me, recording me." "Who do you work for, kid?" Jake's expression didn't change. "You sure you want to go there?" Henry sneered. "Think you're smart, huh? How about friends on the force? I know how to handle threats." Then Jake did something I'll never forget. Slowly, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small black badge. No words, just a symbol. Henry stared at it, confusion turning into fear. His grip on the gun slackened. "You're under investigation for multiple illegal surveillance actions," Jake said coldly. "I'm not your enemy, Henry, but the agency I work for is watching you closely." Henry lowered his weapon, stepped back, and muttered, "This isn't over," before jumping back into his cart and speeding away. Later that night, Jake explained everything. Henry was linked to a group of rogue former officers who were using neighborhood associations as fronts for secret spying operations. They monitored residents, intercepted private internet signals, and kept files on people they disliked. Immigrants, LGBTQ families, activists, single parents. The government had been tracking these networks for years, but they were elusive. They disguised their operations as community rule enforcement. But in truth, they built shadow profiles on innocent people. Henry was a small player but dangerous, armed, connected, and deeply paranoid. Jake's job was to gather proof, confirm what Henry was doing, and uncover any wider networks. After that showdown, things had to ramp up fast. The next day, a black car with tinted windows parked outside our house. A woman in a sharp suit introduced herself only as Agent Marshall. She spoke privately with Jake for nearly an hour. Afterward, she told me, "Your son is exceptional. He's now an active field agent." That's when it hit me. Jake wasn't just a trainee anymore. He was fully in. In the weeks that followed, the agency set up their own hidden surveillance on Henry's property. They tracked his calls, his movements. One night, Jake came into the kitchen holding a tiny device. "What's that?" I asked. "A bug. He put it under our mailbox. I found it this morning." That was all the evidence they needed. Within 2 days, Henry was quietly arrested, not in front of neighbors, and the neighborhood was told he'd moved away to be with family. A new community leader was appointed, a friendly woman named Claire who actually listened and treated people like neighbors, not suspects. Life began to feel normal again. As normal as it can when your kid is a government spy and your quiet street once hit a spy ring. Sometimes I catch Jake watching people, just like before, studying, analyzing, reading between the lines. He's changed, stronger, sharper. Once, I asked him if he missed being a regular kid. He thought for a moment. Sometimes. But when you see what people like Henry are doing, you realize normal isn't always safe. Someone has to watch the watchers. I smiled and said, "Just don't get caught again, okay?" He grinned. "That's the plan." With that, he pulled his jacket over his head and disappeared down the street. Just another kid on a secret mission. Me? I'll never look at a quiet neighborhood the same way again. Behind every white fence, every perfect lawn, and every friendly smile, there can be secrets darker than anyone thinks. And sometimes the smallest thing, a kid taking out the trash, can be the spark that brings the whole hidden system crashing down. Living in a neighborhood like ours, you start to realize how fragile the line is between peace and control. On the surface, everything looks calm, orderly, even safe. But beneath that calm, sometimes there are forces at work that don't just enforce rules. They monitor, manipulate, and intimidate. What happened with Henry Carver showed me that danger isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's hiding in plain sight, disguised as a concerned neighbor or a stickler for rules. Jake's mission opened my eyes. It's not just about one bad guy or one suspicious HOA president. It's about systems built to watch us, to control us, and to silence those who don't fit their narrow definition of normal. And the scary part? These systems can be woven into the very places where we should feel safest. Our homes, our communities. But here's the thing, it's not hopeless. People like Jake remind me that someone has to stand up and keep watch. Someone has to be willing to step into the shadows and expose what's hidden. It takes courage, yes, but it also takes trust. Trust that even in quiet neighborhoods, there are heroes working quietly to protect our freedoms. The world is changing, and with technology advancing, these invisible battles are only going to get more complicated. Surveillance isn't just about cameras or badges anymore. It's about data, connections, and power. And the fight to keep our privacy and rights safe is far from over. So if there's one lesson I've learned, it's this: never take the calm for granted. Keep your eyes open, ask questions, and don't be afraid to challenge the status quo, even when it feels uncomfortable. Because sometimes the smallest actions, like a teenager carrying a trash bin or quietly watching the watchers, can change everything. And that's a story worth telling.